And then after that 8-week time period, schools also have the option of seeking a waiver from the Texas Education Agency to meet the unique needs of a particular school district, understanding this very common concept about education in Texas. What may apply to one school district in one region in the state of Texas could be completely different from what may apply to a different school district in a different region in the state of Texas. And hence, there will be the local flexibility so that local school districts will be able to meet the education needs of their students, of their parents, and of their teachers, making sure that they will be able to prioritize safety as well as be able to prioritize the advancement of education. Now, one thing that we've all learned during the course of this pandemic is the ongoing need to remain flexible. And that ongoing level of flexibility is continued through the education process in two very important ways. Whatever date local schools decide to begin the school year with in-classroom education, there may be times that arise when a student or a teacher or somebody else in a school contracts COVID-19. If that is the case, the school does have the option of being able to shut down that school for a period of days to make sure they're able to sanitize the school, return safety to the school, while also providing remote education to students. And then on top of that, during the course of a school year, just as we've seen in school years past, local public health authorities do have the ability to make recommendations that either a particular school or a particular school district should close their doors for a period of time in order to remedy what may be an outbreak of whatever kind that may be occurring in that school. So this is a long list of strategies that shows that there is a tremendous amount of flexibility to make sure that schools, teachers, and students, as well as parents, are going to have both the flexibility that they need as well as the safety they need to make sure that students will be able to be educated. Now, on top of that, the state of Texas wanted to make sure that we were providing schools with the PPE supplies they need as the school year begins. And so let me tell you what Texas has already distributed to schools in the state of Texas. Already, the Texas Division of Emergency Management has provided Texas schools with more than 59 million masks, more than 24,000 thermometers, more than 565,000 gallons of hand sanitizer, and more than 500,000 face shields. And that's just as of right now. As you can see what's going on behind us right now, there continue to be new deliveries as we speak on an ongoing basis to make sure that all of the PPE supplies of all of the schools across the state of Texas will have their needs met at no cost to the local schools, because this is being paid for by the state of Texas to ease the financial burdens of the local school districts. Now, to tell you more about how this operation works and what is being done both with regard to PPE as well as responding to the needs of our fellow Texans is Chief Nim Kidd, the Chief of the Texas Division of Emergency Management.
Thank you, Governor. And good morning. I apologize for the temperature in the warehouse, but I hope that you'll have a great appreciation for the men and women behind us that have been working here for about 135 days around the clock, a little over 3,000 hours logged by over 200 employees, family members, participants, our friends from the Texas A&M Forest Service, A&M AgriLife, A&M Engineering Extension Service, and the biggest component, the Texas Military Department. And Governor, as you said, the great thanks to our federal partners for keeping them here through the end of the year. This is one of 40 warehouses that TDM is partnering across the state. Now, this is the largest. This is our central one. Things that come in here go out statewide, but there are 39 other locations, as you can see on the map here to my right, that show all of the locations and the amount of PPE that is currently in inventory. And this is not a static number. This is a very dynamic number. We have ordered just over $1 billion worth of PPE. A little over 600 million of it has been received, and most of that has been paid for. Some of that, we've got the invoices and we're paying out. Another 400 million is still on order, and we expect to have it delivered within the next 60 days. So our goal is to get PPE out in the widest reaches of the state that we can. every school district, every hospital, every nursing home assisted living facility, all fire and EMS first responder agencies. Now, on one hand, the national and global supply chain is coming back up. So we're seeing our normal partners use their normal distribution methods in receiving a PPE. This will turn into a stockpile for any future events, as the governor talked about. I think most importantly that I want to get out is thanks to the supply chain task force that Governor mentioned earlier. They really helped us in a critical time of need of going and finding PPE from all corners of the world when there was a shortage. But because of that and the connections that we've made, we are very rich right now in our inventory of PPE, and Governor, we stand ready to serve.
Thank you, Nim. Last thing, and then we'll take a few questions, is that just to make sure you understand, everything you see behind us, all of it is PPE, and all of it is going to be distributed across this region as well as other parts of the state of Texas. There's no other stock item in this warehouse other than PPE that Texas is distributing across the state. With that, we'll be happy to take a few questions. If I'm going to need you to speak up a little bit. It's kind of loud. You may feel free to. Sure. Well, we made clear when I say we, I mean myself, the Lieutenant Governor, the Speaker, as well as the chair of both the House and Senate Public Education Committee, what the standard is in the state of Texas. And the standard is what it has always been, and that is decisions about school openings are made by local school boards and the superintendents they hire. And that standard has not changed. Now, what is also clear is that, as always, local school boards, they operate and can make decisions based upon input from local public health authorities. And so they, being the local school districts, are free to make decisions based upon local public health authorities. However, as it concerns when the schools open, they're not bound by any date dictated months in advance by a local public health authority. In my opinion, we have, by the joint release that was issued by myself as well as the Lieutenant Governor, the Speaker, and the chairs of the House and Senate Public Education. If they want me to issue an executive order, I can cut and paste what we issued and sign it. If they just show up with a copy of it, I'll be happy to sign it. Yeah, would you repeat the first part of your question first?
Do you actually agree the letters that are signed by mayors that are sent to you asking you for, certain things? And the second one is, who will prevail? Health departments or school boards when it comes to a decision if a hotspot develops?
Sure. For one, I do read the letters. Two, who prevails is going to be the local school districts that will prevail in the decision-making process, but it's very important to understand that there are ways during the course of a school year that local public health authorities have a very important role to play. Last year, before the COVID-19 pandemic ever occurred, there were some schools that were shut down because of the flu. Other schools that may have other local public health orders explain reasons why a school may need to shut down. That process always occurs. I will want to go back and answer both your question, but also make sure you understand something that I think that the local officials may not know. And that is, as we made clear both in the letter that I issued, but also in the Attorney General's opinion, if you go back to my earlier executive orders, preempted the effectiveness of local public health orders. And hence, I think the reality is the local public health orders that were issued by Bexar County, for example, were already preempted by my pre-existing executive orders, as well as what I explained both in my letter, but also explained in my prior executive orders, and that is exempt from any other type of local order are public facilities, which would include public schools. So very important, this is not my decision, and no one is having to place trust or non-trust in me. Very important, the decision is made by local school boards and superintendents. Equally important, local school boards and superintendents can base the decision solely upon the information provided to them by local public health authorities. Is that a question? Well, the way Texas law is set up is there are people who are chosen to make decisions for schools and how schools are to operate, and those are the local school boards. Again, to be perfectly clear, a local school board can choose to make their decision based upon what the local public health authority says. Nothing is stopping them from doing that, and they can fully adopt whatever strategy the local public health authority says. I do want to go back and make one thing perfectly clear, and that is, if you look at the letter that was issued by the local public health authority in Bexar County, the local public health authority suggested that schools should not open up for in-classroom education until September the 7th. If you go back to what was said in the letter that was issued by the state, which was just advancing exactly what the Texas Education Agency said, the Texas Education Agency said that schools have way beyond September the 7th before they have to open up for in-classroom education. They have 8 weeks after the first day of class. The first day of class can be September the 7th if that is when schools and school boards decide for the first day of class to be, and then after that, they have 8 more weeks where they can provide education solely by remote education that puts the first day of classroom education not on September the 7th, which is what is allowed by the local public health authority here in Bexar County, but it would actually put it in the November time frame. And hence, it really is the responsibility and the necessity of the locally elected school boards that are responsive to the teachers, to the parents, to the students, to the public, to make the decision that is best for their school, understanding that what may be right for one school is completely different for another school. So part of this is being paid for by the CARES Act. Part of it through some of the personnel is being paid for directly by the federal government through Title 32 that's paying for all the National Guard. And through the executive order issued by the President last night, the National Guard is being able to be extended through the remainder of this calendar year, being paid for 100% by the federal government. Very importantly, with regard to the second part of your question, decisions about how the CARES Act funding is to be distributed is made by a committee of leaders in the legislature. And so it involved people from the governor's office, it involved the lieutenant governor and the speaker, as well as the chair and vice chair of Senate Finance and House Appropriations. Collectively, they came up with a strategy about how the money is to be distributed across the state of Texas, and they will be the ones making the decision about how the state of Texas itself will be spending the money that the state has to spend on it. I think, as you know, as everyone needs to know, that money must be spent before the end of this calendar year. Say it again. My perception is yes, it should be subject to being available to the public. Let's talk about deaths, for example. One reason why there's a difference in numbers on deaths is because what the state has decided to do to ensure the highest level of accuracy for deaths is to use death certificates and then base it upon whether or not COVID-19 was listed as the cause of death. Whereas otherwise there were two things that were going on. One, you may not have that same level of accuracy. Two, there were delays in getting that information to DSHS. Understand this, the way that the law is structured and works is DSHS that has the responsibility to provide that information to the CDC up the food chain. And so DSHS, that's the Department of State Health Services, sets the standards for how information is to be gathered and reported, trying to achieve the highest level of accuracy. Actually, you need to understand the way the federal government is setting up the standard for an antigen test. They are not counting antigen test as a positive the same way that they do a COVID-19 test. They're listing it as a probable. And so it's very important to separate the two because a COVID-19 test has a higher level of accuracy than does an antigen test. And hence, they will be categorized and reported separately.
Thanks, guys. We gotta go.
Will Dupree here in the KXAN Live studio in Austin. Thank you so much for joining our stream. You've just heard comments from Governor Greg Abbott there. He was touring a Texas Division of Emergency Management warehouse in San Antonio, discussing the supply of personal protective equipment for the state. They in particular wanted to highlight what kind of PPE is being given to schools from the state of Texas. And just a few moments ago, the governor, as well as the chief for the Texas Division of Emergency Management, provided an update. At this time, the state has given out more than 59 million masks to schools, more than 24,000 thermometers, more than 500,000 gallons of hand sanitizer and face shields to school districts all across the state. Interesting to note that as well that the Texas Division of Emergency Management has set up 40 warehouses throughout the state to be able to continue a steady supply of PPE to schools that might need it as the school year begins. Many school districts obviously are starting off virtual. The governor discussed talking about letting school boards and superintendents and not public health officials decide when schools should reopen to classes potentially in person. He defended that decision as well, despite criticism from around the state from people talking about that particular decision-making power going to school boards and superintendents rather than those public health officials. The state has also ordered just over $1 billion in PPE. They received about $600 million of that so far, and they're waiting on an order of more than $400 million for additional PPE. Earlier in the comments, we did have some issues getting our feed up to be able to share with you all this particular press conference. They did say that the supply for PPE for the state of Texas is stable at this point, and they're not hurting to be able to get supplies because the demand is not as high as it previously was several months ago. However, with schools reopening and the pandemic still being an issue, as well as flu season coming up soon, that could affect the supply of PPE. That's why they are warehousing and stockpiling some of these supplies in those warehouses across the state to be able to get that help to schools and other entities like hospitals and first responders and nursing homes to be able to get them that lifeline if they should need it. Thank you all again for joining us for our stream. Our Next Star Bureau reporters for Texas, Maggie Glenn and Wes Rappaport, they were there bringing us this signal from San Antonio, the governor's remarks there. They're going to have a wrap-up, a story for this that will be airing in your station all across Texas, so please stay tuned for that. Once again, I'm Will Dupree, broadcasting here from Austin at KXAN. We thank you all for watching. Please, everyone, stay safe and healthy, and if at all possible, still at home right now. Thanks again.